What's up, guys? We're here to go over UFC San Antonio, Vera versus Sandhagen. Uh, really looking forward to this. The last card we had here in Texas, I think, pretty sure it was the Cater versus Emmett card, and yeah, it was an amazing card. We had 9 finishes on that card. 8 of them were knockouts or TKOs. I don't know if this one's going to quite live up to the hype that one had. I want to say that one might have been up there as far as like the most finishes to ever have been on a card. I could be wrong, but been a while, so I don't remember. But so UFC Vegas 71 just happened. 286 hasn't happened yet. For those of y'all that are new to the channel or just cruising through, trying to just checking stuff out. What I do, I give out my bets for free. If you follow me on Instagram, high kick underscore fight picks, you can go look at my bets and all my picks on there as well. If I add any bets from what I say in my videos, you will see them on there. If I add anything after my video comes out, we had a good week last weekend. I had 3 plays hit, and two of them were underdog plays. I had a plus 175 on Marab Dwashvili that hit, and let me pull that up so I can tell y'all exactly what those were real quick. Marab Dwashvili, I had an underdog play on Alexander Volkov too. I'm just trying to get, I don't remember the amounts that I had on those. So I had a half unit on Marab Dwashvili. I had half unit on Alexander Volkov at minus 130 or plus 130, and then I had a 3 unit play on Davy Grant that hit, which yeah, that fight was close. He was losing that fight, so I got lucky on that one. That was my biggest bet. And then I had a half unit underdog play on Tyson Nam that didn't hit. So 3 of 4, a lot of profit there. Just the Davy Grant one is a lot of profit. So uh, not to mention the 2 underdog plays. So, for the people that are cruising through and, have something to say about my predictions or whatever, or have something to say in the comments. Well, I mean, I'm putting myself out there, my bets and my picks for free, and not charging anybody for them. And I do pretty well. So if you don't like it, I guess you don't have to listen. But sorry, I had a. It was probably the first time in the few months I've been doing this. I had a couple people talking crap about my predictions, which, as far as my bets last week, the bets went good, but as my overall picks, those weren't very good. I mean, there were a lot of people that won, a lot of underdogs winning that nobody thought would win. I imagine not a whole lot of people had very good number of right picks on last week's card, but yeah, man. So check it out, like and subscribe, whatever. Let's get into this card. So first up, we got Tamires Vidal taking on Haley Cowan, and I believe Haley Cowan jumped in to replace somebody on short. No, I guess they just, because she just had a fight fall out a couple weeks ago, but it doesn't show that we lost a fight, so I guess they might have just slapped this together real quick. We did lose Sean Brady versus Michelle Piera, and Alex Caceres versus Nate Landwehr, and Raquel Pennington versus Irene Aldana. Um, the Alex Caceres Nate Landwehr fight would have been really good. They just announced yesterday that they're replacing Caceres with Austin Lingo. He had a fight fall out last weekend, I believe. So yeah, but back to the first fight. Tamires Vidal taking on Haley Cowan. Tamires Vidal is 7-1 and 1-0 in the UFC. She's 24 years old, 5'6" with a 68-inch reach. Um, she's coming off a big flying knee KO over Ramona Pasquale. Her last two fights have been finishes, one by heel hook and then one by the flying knee. I wasn't super high on her, but looking at her last two fights, she's very exciting to watch. She throws very heavy. She did eat a few shots in her last fight before she landed that knee. She has good kicks. It was actually a flying knee to the body that she won that fight with, so I don't really know. Do you consider that a KO? I mean, she can't continue, so I mean, I guess it might as well be. But so she's creative, and yeah, has gotten a couple finishes, so that's always good. She's taken on Haley Cowan. She is 31 years old, 5'8", with a 69.3-inch reach. She's going to have a little over a reach advantage here. She's 7-2, and this is going to be her UFC debut. She shows, a few finishes on the regional scene. So, like I said, that's always impressive. Both these girls have had a few finishes as of late. You don't see that as much in women's MMA. But I guess it makes sense. They're both bantamweights, so you see it more with the bigger weight classes, I guess. But Haley Cohen's pretty well rounded. She's going to have the size, the height and reach advantage here, I believe. Yeah, she's going to have a couple inches of height as well as that over inch reach. Neither of these girls have really fought the best competition. Their opponents all had pretty small records, aside from, maybe Ramona Pasquale for Vidal. Um, she was supposed to fight a few weeks ago. Cohen was, and like I said, the fight was canceled. I guess since she's from Texas, they threw her on this card. Gonna slap this together last minute, probably. Everyone on Tapology is going with Vidal. Not really sure why. Maybe because she's had one fight in the UFC. Um, Cohen's going to be the bigger girl here. She'll have the height and reach advantage. Like I said, based on what I've seen, this fight could really go either way. So I mean, if I'm pretty sure Cohen's probably gonna wind up being the underdog. I don't remember what the line was because I don't really bet on women's fights very much. But sure she'll be the underdog, and I'll take her to win by decision. And from what I've seen, what if I've learned anything, guys, from watching MMA and all this stuff and betting on fights, it's that anything can happen in women's MMA. JJ Aldrich was one of the bigger underdogs on the card last weekend at Vegas 71, and she got beat by Ariana Lipsky, who has been finished three times, in her in her last five fights. So nobody saw that coming, I don't think. But yeah, the pick's going to be Cohen. Doubt I'll be putting any money on it. Next up, we got Manuel Torres taking on Trey Ogden. Torres is a pretty exciting fighter. Torres is 28 years old, 5'10", with a 73-inch reach. He is 13-2 and 1-0 in the UFC. He looked real good in his debut, but it was against Frank Camacho, who is 2-6 in the UFC and has been knocked out a whole bunch of times. So he has heavy hands, good calf kicks, very good boxing. He's got crisp, fast punches. Very exciting to watch. He has lots of finishes on his record. He throws good uppercuts. If he has any weak spots, I would say, maybe it's his submission awareness and defense. His two losses are by submission, so that's the only reason I say that. I watched, three or four of his fights, so I mean, they were all, him getting wins. So I didn't make it as far back to his last loss. But not sure if the takedown defense will hold up, against the higher level wrestlers, when he's in the UFC later on down the road. He's taking on a guy here that I consider to be pretty good. Trey Ogden is 33 years old, 5'11", with a 72-inch reach. So Manuel's going to have a 1-inch reach advantage over him. He's 16-5 and 1-1 in the UFC. So Trey beat a 12-0 guy last time out. It was the guy's UFC debut, yeah, but so he's obviously, he's no joke at all. He had a close fight with Jordan Levitt. I'll say Trey's last opponent and Torres are kind of similar. Both guys are good strikers. Torres has more of a boxing type, striking style, whereas his last opponent was more of a Muay Thai guy, and doesn't have as high a volume really as Torres, but it's kind of a similar as far as the game plan might be or should be. But I would say that Torres will be more aggressive than his last opponent was. but him rushing in could give Trey an easy takedown. Trey has good submissions as well. Trey is definitely going to be the less technical striker here. But he was at that disadvantage in his last fight, and he was able to get the win. So, you just never know. I think Trey will need to get the takedowns in this fight, and if he wins, it's probably going to be by submission. Um, you know, uh, Trey's probably going to be the toughest guy that Torres has faced yet, with the most experience, I believe. And it's actually a hard pick for me. As we saw, um, last week, man, you can't always trust these guys that get the quick finishes and come into the UFC, kind of like Cedriquez Dumas. I mean, everybody was picking him; he was a big favorite, and showed to kind of not be very experienced. But Torres has a lot more experiences. We got a bigger record, probably fought better competition than Rodriguez has. So I like Torres' striking a lot, and I'm going to pick him. But if Trey gets the takedowns, I would say live bet Trey Ogden. See if you can get him at an underdog price. If he's getting the takedowns, and but I'll take Torres by decision. Next up, we got Vinicius Salvador taking on Victor Altamirano. And Salvador is 26 years old, 5'7", with a 70.5-inch reach. He's 14-4, and this is his UFC debut. He's coming off a KO win over Shannon Ross on the Contender Series. If I remember correctly, he did get tagged a few times as well, before he got the KO there. Ross has been knocked out quite a bit at this point. uh, this guy has had a couple of fights fall out, recently. He's got lots of finishes on his record. He has good power. He's a good striker. He's a good size flyweight as well, but his opponent is actually going to have the height advantage, not the reach advantage. The reach is the same. Um, what else? He's got good power. He's a good striker. Like I said, he's uh, a lot of I don't have a lot of bad things to say, against this guy. He's pretty good. Only thing I can say is all his losses are to guys with decent records, and if you look at all of his wins, aside from like maybe one or two on his record, they're against guys with really bad records, or no experience. So it seems like every time he takes on somebody that's got more experience or is a little bit, higher level fighter, he ends up losing. That's really the only bad thing to say about him. He's pretty good though, as far as I can tell. He's going to be taking on Victor Altamirano. He is 32 years old. He's 5'8", with a 70.5-inch reach. 11-2 and 1-1 in the UFC. His loss actually was a really close fight. I think it was with Carlos Hernandez. I thought he won that fight, but it could have gone either way. He gave us some takedowns in that fight, I think. And then he came out, and he did get caught a little bit in the De Silva fight, but he came out and destroyed Daniel De Silva with his ground and pound. After that, like I said, he looked great there in that fight. I'm a big fan of Victor's actually. He's fighting out of Fort Worth, Texas, which is where I live, so he'll be fighting pretty close to home. And I wish I was able to make it to this card. I missed out, but Victor's very fast. He throws nice long combinations. He has a good chin. He ate a lot of shots, in the De Silva fight. Like I said, hard ones, spinning, back fist and all that crap, and survived and was able to get the win. He has really good ground and pound. He's got good submission defense and awareness. Good striking. He's very well rounded. He really drives his knees in when he throws them. I think that's what he dropped De Silva with was a kind of a jumping knee in the clinch. I like this guy, and I'm going to be picking him to win by decision. He could get a finish, but yeah, I'm going to take him to win by decision. Just because Salvador is a tough guy for sure. Next up, we got Na Ling taking on Brogan Walker. And Na Ling she's 26 years old. She's 5'5", with a 67.3-inch reach. I don't know why they're so specific on that. Na Ling is 19-6. She's 0-2 in the UFC. Both her losses are by finish. Just not really a whole lot of good things to say here, unfortunately, for her in this spot. She's going to be at a disadvantage, I think, everywhere the fight goes. So I didn't know. I really didn't think she was in the UFC anymore. But I guess they're giving her another shot. But she's going to be taking on Brogan Walker. She is 33 years old. She's 5'4" with a 67-inch reach. Reaches are basically the same here. Um, she's 7-3 and 0-1 in the UFC. She come off the Ultimate Fighter show. She lost to Killer Miller. Um, I thought that she would have won that fight before, but that actually showed me how good Juliana Miller's grappling, really is. So I'm sure Brogan's had time to go back and work on all that stuff. Uh, um, she has really good striking. She's a very good kickboxer. She has good power. I don't think Ling's going to be able to get the takedowns here. I'm sure, like I said, I'm sure Brogan's gone back and worked on a lot of that stuff and tried to shore up some of those holes in her game. Uh, and I think she's going to outstrike Ling here, and Ling has been finished in her last few fights. So there's a good possibility that Brogan could get a finish here. But I'm going to take her to win by, unanimous decision. So next up, we got Steven Peterson taking on Lucas Alexander. And Steven Peterson is 32 years old. He's 5'10" with a 70-inch reach. He has had trouble making weight at times, as you can see. He weighed in for his last fight at 149 instead of the 145 limit. He's 19-10 and 3-4 in the UFC. Um, so his record doesn't really tell the full story. He's a very tough, very experienced veteran. His last fight was a wild fight where he lost a split decision to, a very tough Julian Erosa. Um, he'll be at a height and reach disadvantage here. I think he's kind of used to that. His last opponent had a big height and reach advantage. He's very well rounded. He has heavy hands. He's got good striking. He's fighting at home here. He trains in Dallas. So he lives in McKinney. Both are close to where I live. So yeah, whatever. But he that means I'm a fan, I guess. But he has okay wrestling. He'll try and use it when he needs to, but he mainly likes to have these wild fights. Uh, his last win was over Chase Hooper, which Hooper has looked horrible recently, so not a lot of stock in that. He can avoid submissions well. He does well, like I said, in brawls, and everybody on Tapology is going with Peterson here. Um, he does get hit a lot though, so be wary on that. If you're planning on betting on this fight, and he's going to be taking on Lucas Alexander. He's 27 years old. He's 5'11" with a 73-inch reach, and he's 7-3 and 0-1 in the UFC. His loss was to Joe Anderson Brito, who hits like a truck and is very powerful and explosive. He's very good. He hasn't fought the best of competition. His record doesn't look very good, so I guess I kind of understand why people are favoring Peterson here. He's going to have 3 inches of reach here. He's not a bad fighter. Like I said, Brito is just too powerful and super high pace for him. Just ran through him really quickly before he could get anything going. I think this could be a close fight. Alexander's submission defense has cost him twice, and although I'm tempted to risk it on him here because he does hit hard, and Peterson is there to be hit. I think he'll have a good first round, and maybe Peterson will take over. After that, and I'm going to take Peterson to win by decision. Maybe he takes over in the last 2 rounds. He's done that. He does come on late in fights. He does survive usually. Usually, he does have a bad first round. So I'll go with Peterson. Next up, we got Trevin Giles taking on Preston Parsons. Trevin Giles is 30 years old. He's 6 foot tall with a 74-inch reach. He's 15-4 and 6-4 in the UFC. He's real good, well rounded. He's a very underrated fighter. He has a win over Roman Delice, if you can believe that. He had a couple of tough fights with tough opponents that are on good win streaks right now. Michael Morales and Dricus Duplessis. So those two losses, I don't hold them against them because they're really tough guys, and they haven't really lost yet in the UFC. So, but they were worrying because he was knocked out twice in a row. So, um, that did worry me about it. But he was able to get a victory last time out over Louis Cosi. Um, Tapology shows a loss after that to Mike Mallet, which kind of threw me off for a second. And I was like, what the fuck? But that was actually a grappling match. So don't think that he lost to Mike Mallet in the UFC. Uh, but he has good striking and good power. He's got a few good knockouts in the UFC. He has good cardio. I think that's how he was able to beat Delice. He kind of took over late in the fight when Delice was messing around and kind of wasting energy and not just kind of coasting through the fight and ended up gassing himself out a little bit. And Giles took over. Um, he looks good, dropping down to welterweight. I can't fault him for the Morales fight. Like I said, Morales is undefeated and a finisher. There's no shame in that. He has good leg kicks. I think he got James Krause with those. I think he injured James Krause's leg and was able to win a decision in that fight. He's going to be the bigger guy as far as height and reach. He's going to have a 2 inch reach advantage. And he's taking on Preston Parsons, who is 27 years old, 5'11 with a 72-inch reach. He's 10-3 and 1-1 in the UFC. His last win was against Evan Elder, who was fighting up a weight class. Parsons was way bigger than him, and he was able to use his grappling easily there. Like I said, he's way bigger. He has good wrestling and grappling. He was knocked out in his debut against Daniel Rodriguez, which is kind of surprising because Daniel hasn't finished a whole lot of people in the UFC. But so Giles is going to have the striking advantage here for sure, I believe. He'll have to get the Parsons will have to get the takedowns here to win the fight, and Giles has pretty good takedown defense, and like I said, I think he'll be the bigger guy here. And I'm going to pick Giles here. I'm gonna say he stuffs the takedowns and wins the striking exchanges and gets the decision. So next up we got Daniel Pineda taking on Tucker Lutz. Uh, yeah. So Daniel Pineda is 37 years old. He's 5'7" with a 70-inch reach. He's 27-14 and 4-5 in the UFC. So first thing you'll notice about this guy is, a lot of his recent and most recent fights have been turned into no contest. The PFL ones are for failed steroids, drug test for steroids. He then came back to the UFC and beat Herbert Burns. He then got knocked out by Cub Swanson, and then in his next fight, he had like a eye poke and he couldn't continue. The doctor stopped the fight, and at that point, he failed that drug test for that fight for amphetamines. So that's not really a good look there. And yeah, not something you really want to trust. You got a 37-year-old guy on amphetamines. So he hasn't fought in almost 2 years. I'm sure it was from the suspension. He's 37. He swings really big. He got dropped with a punch that wasn't thrown very hard in the Philly fight. He was kind of getting, he throws heavy leg kicks, but he seems like he's been through the ringer. Unfortunately, he's always getting hurt. With every punch Andre Fili threw, he was kind of hurt by him. The body kicks, everything. I don't imagine he's going to look too much better here. 2 years later, than he did there. He's going to be taking on Tucker Lutz, 28 years old, 5'8" with a 72-inch reach. Tucker's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage here. He's 12-2 and 1-1 in the UFC. Tucker's a talented fighter. He had some trouble with Pat Sabatini. I think it was the takedowns in that fight. I think he kept getting tripped up the same way and wound up on bottom. Pat Sabatini is really good with those trips. He's got some good KO finishes on his record, Tucker Lutz, and he's good in the clinch with his control and with his knees. He goes to the body well with his punches, and his kicks as well. He's got good wrestling as well. Doesn't use it as much if he doesn't have to, but he's fast with his double legs. I'm going to be picking Lutz to win here by round one KO or round two, for sure. Pineda's just he's been through the ringer, man, and I think probably this will be his last fight in the UFC. Next up, we got CJ Vergara taking on Daniel Da Silva. I guess they moved some fights around. But so CJ Vergara is 31 years old. He is 5'6" with a 68-inch reach. He did miss weight his last fight out. I don't know if that was like a catch weight or something, but he's 10-4-1 and 1-2 in the UFC. So this guy is kind of under the radar. He made his debut taking on Ode Osborne, and he didn't get the win there, but he beat Clayton Rodriguez after that, which is pretty good. Uh, pretty good look. He was able to use his cardio in that fight and control a lot of the grappling exchanges and get some takedowns. Clayton's looked pretty good since then, so uh, then he took on Tatsuro Tiara, who's undefeated right now and a very good grappler and has very good submissions. So I don't fault him for that loss very much. Vergara is very well rounded. He throws lots of volume. He mixes up his kicks, real well. He pressures guys, a lot. If you notice that in the Clayton Rodriguez fight, that's how he was able to kind of take over, just constant pressure, forward pressure. He can take a punch for sure. He has a good get up game when he is taken down. He had quite a few finishes leading into the UFC before he got here, but hasn't really got any finishes yet in the octagon in the UFC. So he uses his head movement pretty well as well. He's very good. He's exciting to watch, and gonna be taking on Daniel De Silva. He's 26 years old. He's 5'6" with a 70-inch reach. De Silva will have a 2-inch reach advantage here. He's 11-4 and 0-3 in the UFC. Um, and I actually thought they had cut this kid already. But he's an exciting fighter. He throws a lot of power. He throws all the crazy spinning attacks you can think of, the spinning elbows and spinning kicks and all that stuff. He just hasn't been able to put together in the UFC. He caught Victor Altamirano in their fight with some good shots, rocked him pretty bad, but he's always live for a knockout. He'll always have a chance with his speed and his power. But we've seen him struggle with the takedowns and getting back up when he's taken down, and we've seen him struggle with the submission awareness and defense as well. So I see an easy path to victory here for Vergara. He'll be able to use his takedowns. Um, you know, um, CJ hasn't been finishing a lot of people since being in the UFC. Um, but I think he'll wear on De Silva here and get a late finish because De Silva has showed to slow down a lot. As the fight goes on, there's a couple fights where he was gassed out after the first round. So let's say CJ Vergara gets a late finish in this fight. Next up, we got Nate Landwehr taking on Austin Lingo, and it's gonna be a fun fight. Nate Landwehr is 34 years old. He's 5'9" with a 70.5-inch reach. He's going to have a half-inch reach advantage here. He's 16-4 and 3-2 in the UFC. So Nate originally was going to fight Alex Caceres, but honestly, I figured that they would find a way to throw Austin Lingo on this card since he lost his fight last weekend. Uh, he's from Texas, so I figured they'd find a way to get him a fight on this card. Nate's a real tough guy. He tends to overwhelm guys with his cardio and take over in the late in the fight. We saw him do that with David Onama and Ludovic Klein in those victories. He uses a lot of pressure, but it kind of hurts him sometimes because he'll go out there and he'll get hit, and crack, chasing guys down, and if he survives, like I said, he'll come in strong later. They just fought a lot of tough competition, and he was an M1 Global before the UFC. He was over there fighting tough Russian guys. His grappling and his submissions have came a long way since being in the UFC. I'm going to say this fight will be probably fight of the night. I think it's going to be the best fight on the card, probably, for sure. Both these guys fight the same way, and neither of them are going to get tired. If Nate has an advantage, I would say it may be his grappling. He may be able to get the takedowns, but I don't know. He's taking on Austin Lingo. Lingo is 28 years old. He is 5'10" with a 70-inch reach. He's 9-1 and 2-1 in the UFC. I really like Lingo's boxing. He's over at Fortis MMA in Dallas, so he's fighting pretty close to home here. He keeps his hands right at his chin. When he's not throwing, he's got pretty good defense. He has fast hands. He's got big power, even though he hasn't really got finishes in the UFC. I've seen him hurt. He hurt Luis Saldana pretty bad in that fight. He uses his jab really well. He'll double it up sometimes. He has fast hands. He'll throw 4 or 5 punch combinations. He has good cardio. He'll push a very tough pace on guys, just like Landwehr does. Um, his fight with Ricardo Ramos fell out. I was taking him there as an underdog. But keep in mind that Nate's wins have been over skilled guys with major cardio issues. And Lingo does not have cardio issues, in my opinion. He pushes a tough pace as well. I think Lingo will be better on the feet. Um, this will be a close fight. It just got announced a few minutes ago, so I don't know what the line's going to be yet. I I think Nate's going to have a rough first 2 rounds if he can't get the takedowns. So he may have a good third round, but I think Lingo's going to end up winning by decision here. I think he'll be able to out volume Nate the first 2 rounds, maybe hurt him. But I don't think either of these guys are getting tired. I think it's going to be a pretty exciting fight. But I'm going to pick Lingo in this spot. Next up, we got Alex Perez taking on Manel Kape. Alex Perez is 31 years old. He's 5'6" with a 65.5-inch reach. Excuse me a second. He's 24-7 and 6-3 in the UFC. So he's an exciting fighter, but one thing you'll notice looking at his record, at all of his wins, they're all over guys that are cut from the UFC and didn't make it in the UFC. And every time he fought anybody, with a that was good or had a good record or had been in the UFC a while, he lost. Joseph Benavidez, Francisco Figueiredo, or my bad, Devison Figueiredo. I don't know why I got the brothers mixed up there. That was dumb. But Devison Figueiredo, and then he got finished by Pantoja the last time out. He was submitted very easily in his last 2 fights and taken down very easily. He is a good striker. He's tough. He has really good calf kicks. He got a win by leg kicks early on in his UFC career. But like I said, he has struggled with the takedowns and the submissions, and I just don't know that if he's as good as the UFC's kind of pushed him into being. They kind of rushed him to the top of the division. When he was fighting guy. I know like back when he was coming up the flyweight division, what didn't have as good of a talent pool as it does now. So he was kind of able to beat all these guys coming in and got up to the top real quick, and then hadn't fought very tough competition up to that point. So it kind of showed. But he is an exciting fighter, and this will be more of his style of fight here, I think. But he's taking on Manel Kape. He is 29 years old. He's 5'5" with a 68-inch reach. He's 18-6 and 3-2 in the UFC. Manuel has had a few fights fall off. He was champion over with Ryzen before he came to the UFC. And he's very good. He is one of the real threats right now in this division. He's going to have 2.5 inches of reach here. And this fight, like I said, will be more to Alex's style of fighting. You know, Manel isn't going to go chase the takedowns unless he has to. Manel has big power. He's very explosive, and he'll pressure guys. But I think he really prefers to counter. He'll pressure, but he doesn't. He'll wait for them to throw and then try to counter well. But like I said, he fights anyway. He's really good. But I mean, I noticed that he was trying to do that in a couple of his fights that I watched. Leading up to this one. Um, he is he's aggressive from the bottom position if he's taken down as well. He'll use his Kimura to reverse position, and he'll try and finish with it as well. He's got a really good Kimura, and if anybody doesn't know, when you train jiu-jitsu, that Kimura can lead you and set you up also into an armbar, or it's very easy to take the back. When you pull them over with that Kimura, you can take the back. And he uses it very well. So I mean, it's good to see that he's not somebody that just lays there when he gets taken down and doesn't have a good get up game or doesn't threaten with submissions off of his back. I see Cop getting the win here, and I'm going to say he'll probably catch Perez with a good punch and drop him, and then jump rear naked choke in round 1 or 2. Um, that would be my guess as to how this fight's going to go. So next up, we got Chidi Njokuani taking on Albert Duraev. This fight was actually originally lower on the card. I guess they moved it up. I gotta go scroll back up my notes here. But Chidi Njokuani is very exciting. He is 34 years old. He's 6'3" with an 80-inch reach. He's 22-8 and 2-1 in the UFC. This guy is super exciting. He's very talented. Really good striker with a wide variety of strikes, powerful elbows, knees, fast technical hands and kicks. He hit Gregory Rodriguez with everything that he had. Busted him up, split his head open with elbows, and a lot of referees would have stopped that fight, but that one didn't, and Rodriguez survived and was able to get the win. So If Chitty has any weaknesses, it may be his takedown defense. But he is pretty good. I'm not saying it's horrible takedown defense. I'm just saying, it's just probably the weak part of his game. His striking is definitely his strong suit. He's a tall guy with a long reach. He's going to have a 5-inch reach advantage here. Um, he's definitely the kind of guy that can use his reach well when he has it, and he's usually going to have it at the long reach for the division. He's also fighting out of Garland, Texas, probably about 45 minutes away from where I live. So he's going to be fighting, pretty much at home. He has a good Darce choke. He has a pretty good get up game when he's taken down. He'll threaten with stuff and try to he scrambles back up to his feet pretty well, at least the first few times from what I've seen. That he's taken down. Um, so he struggled with the grappling in the past. If he gets space though, he's very effective and he makes it count. So they might Duraev might try to control him up against the cage and everything, but I still think that njokuani will probably be able to get the better of that anyway. Because if he has any space at all, I mean, he's just devastating with the elbows and the knees. We saw that in the Dusko Todorovic fight where he hit him with that elbow in close and dropped him. This is a guy I would like to see fight, Adesanya or Pereira. I mean, those would be fun fights. They're all super talented kickboxers. So yeah, if Chidi will ever make it up that far in the division, that would be fun. He's gonna be taking on Albert Duraev. He's 34 years old with 5'11" with a 75-inch reach. He's gonna be at a 5-inch reach disadvantage here. He's 15-4 and 1-4 in the UFC. He kind of got exposed in his last fight, with Joaquin Buckley. He had nothing for him in that fight, really. It was a doctor stoppage, but he didn't look like he really wanted to continue. From what I seen, his eye was just straight swollen shut. If he's gonna get the win, he'll have to take Chitty down and keep him down. That's the only way he can do it. He's not gonna be, he's if he was getting outstruck by Buckley, Chitty will definitely destroy him. That's not even close. So I'm gonna be picking Chitty to win here by KO round one. Maybe he has a little success early with the takedowns, Duraev does, but I think Chitty's eventually going to catch him for sure. So be taking Chitty Ninja to win by knockout. Uh, so as good as this card is up to this point, um, these next fights might bore us, or at least the Holly Holm fight's probably going to be pretty boring. Sorry to say, but I'm not sure why they put these so high up on the card. I guess the co-event spot for Holly Holm is because maybe she wins this, she might get another title shot. You know, but Andrea Lee and Macy Barber being so high up on the card, I just wasn't sure about. I mean, I know Andrea Lee's from Texas and stuff, so maybe that's why. She's got a lot of fans here, but I don't know. I don't understand it. But Andrea Lee is 34 years old. She is 5'6" with a 69.5-inch reach. She's 13-6 and 5-4 in the UFC. Um, she's been around for a while. She's a pretty girl. She's had some good wins and some bad losses. If I've learned anything from betting on fights, so like I said earlier, it's anything can happen in women's MMA. Doesn't matter the odds. She has a Muay Thai background. She's very good with her striking. She has good jiu-jitsu as well. I wouldn't say she has the best takedowns, but whatever. She uses good uppercuts. She throws long combinations. She's pretty good in the clinch. She's fast. She's been known to slow down late in the fight. She's gonna be the bigger girl here. She'll have a height and 4.5-inch reach advantage, so it's kind of a big deal. And like I said, she's fighting at home, so that actually sometimes makes a difference, believe it or not. And she's taking on Macy Barber. Barber is 24 years old, 5'5" with a 65-inch reach. She's 11-2 and 6-2 in the UFC. She's good. She's tough. So I think she's a purple belt in jiu-jitsu, black belt in karate. Um, Everyone's going with Barber here, and she's going to be a big favorite, I'm pretty sure. Um, being that I don't really put money on women's fights very often, and when I do, it usually bites me in the ass. I'm gonna pick Lee just because I like the way she fights and I like her pressure, and I think she'll have an advantage on the feet here for sure. And like I said, anything can happen, So wouldn't put money on it, but I'm gonna pick Andrea Lee to get back, in the win column, at home in Texas. And yeah, wouldn't put money on this fight though, guys. Next up, we got the co-main event: Holly Holm taking on Yana Santos. Um, Holly Holm is 41 years old. She's 5'8" with a 69-inch reach. She's 14-6 and 7-6 in the UFC. And I think her age is finally starting to catch up just a little bit. I'm not saying she's going to lose this fight. She's been at the top of the division for a long time. Her last fight was real close. I thought she won, but it could have gone either way. And that's kind of what led me to believe that she's finally slowing down just a little bit. Pretty sure we were gonna, I was pretty sure we were gonna get to see her fight for the belt again. At least once before she retires. Maybe we will. I mean, I bet if she knocked this girl out, I bet they would definitely give her the title shot. You know, um, Holm has a boxing record of like 32, 3-3. Is a very talented striker. Very decorated. Her takedown defense has come a long way as well. She tends to fight pretty safe nowadays. She doesn't take a whole lot of risk. She kind of content to just outstrike and counter from just from range. She's gonna have a how big is her reach here? She's only gonna have a half-inch reach advantage here, so probably won't matter too much. She's going to be taking on Yana Santos. She is 33 years old, 5'8" with a 68.5-inch reach. She's 14-6 and 4-3 in the UFC. So, I guess they were just desperate to get home an opponent because this girl really, hasn't done anything of recently to have earned this shot. Honestly, in my opinion, against home anyway. She's not on a win streak or anything. She hasn't fought in over a year and a half. She was finished her last fight. Um, she was very aggressive in her last fight. Even though she lost, she looked like kind of a lot improved with her striking and her kicks. She's not going to outstrike Home here, though. I'm going to be picking Home to get the win by decision. And yeah, I just kind of wish this wasn't the co-main event. I feel like there's kind of a lot that could be put there. And I noticed something. I don't know if anybody else knows anything about this or not, but um, on all the betting sites, for some reason they keep showing up and having Max Holloway and Arnold Allen, or at least it was yesterday, on the betting lines with all these fights on this card. So I don't know if maybe they're thinking about putting it on this card, you know, um, or what. But I would much rather have that be the main event and Vera be the co-main event, or vice versa, than this. And then I don't know if they're thinking about it. I'm not sure why that. I haven't really seen that much before. They would have that fight, you know, um, it's on the card with all the bets. So I don't know if they're thinking about adding it or it's a possibility or what, but that'd be cool. So then we got the main event: Marlon Vera taking on Corey Sandhagen. Uh, really looking forward to this fight. It's gonna be really good. So Marlon Vera is 30 years old, 5'8" with a 70.5-inch reach. He is 22, 7-1, and he's 14-6 in the UFC. It's crazy because I feel like, it almost just doesn't seem like he hasn't been around that long. That's a lot of fights, to have in the UFC. 20 fights into his career, and he's really good. His he's got really good striking, really good kicks. His takedown defense is pretty good. And the only thing that really I could say against him, which he's made it work for him, so I can't really say that anything bad about it. Is that like in his last few fights, his last several fights, he'll tend to get outstruck. He doesn't get hurt. He doesn't get clipped with any hard shots. He'll tend to get outstruck, but then he'll land the big shots, the more meaningful shots, and drop people in every round, and then eventually get the finish. He did that. He did that against well, the Davy Grant was unanimous decision, but the Frankie Edgar fight, he was getting outstruck in that fight, and he ended up landing the big kick and getting the win. Same thing with Rob Font. He was getting outstruck, and then he would land the big shots in every round and drop Font every time. And I believe that was a 5-round fight. So he's got the cardio. The Dominic Cruz fight, he was getting out volumed, and then he landed the big shot. So he does find a way to make it work, and there's always a possibility that he can get the win. And I'm very tempted, kind of torn on this fight, honestly. He's taking on Corey Sandhagen. He is 30 years old. He is 5'11" with a 70-inch reach. He's 15-4, and he's 8-3 in the UFC, and he's really good. And the story of his fights are pretty much the same. He's lost to T.J. Dillashaw. It was split. That was a very close fight. He could have he could have won that fight. And then the Peter Yan, uh, or yeah, not the Dillashaw fight. Was it the Dillashaw fight? Yeah, both of these fights were super close, if I remember correctly. And he could have won both of these fights. Um, he has a loss to the champion Aljamain Sterling before as well. But he has very good footwork, very good striking, very good variety of strikes, and kicks and punches, and he uses good angles and stuff. It reminds me a lot of Dominic Cruz back in the day, maybe even better. He tends to not get hit a lot. He tends to dance around his opponents and outstrike them and, land the hard shots. And that's going to be the story of this fight, really, it's kind of a 50-50 on everybody who I was picking. I know Vera is the underdog. And I think Corey could. He is going to be able to outland Vera. He is going to, have the volume, but Vera does tend to land those big shots. So I don't know, man. I'm really torn on this fight. Uh, I know I picked a underdog in the main event last week and got the big plus money fucking plus 175 ticket on it. So I'm kind of tempted to do it again here with Vera. And man, I'm still kind of torn on this one, man. I really want to pick Vera. Uh, I'm a Vera fan, uh, as well as a Corey Sandhagen fan, but I think Corey should. I know he will get the volume and everything, but Vera will probably clip him. So I don't know. It's a tough pick, man. It's a tough pick. I'm gonna go with Vera. He's on his way, man. He's on the roll right now. So I'm gonna pick Vera. I'm gonna say that I'm gonna say he wins due to just landing the bigger shots, the more meaningful shots. I think he's gonna hurt Corey with the leg kicks. And I think he'll come on strong later in the fight as Corey slows down. Maybe he'll take over. Um, maybe he'll get a knockout. We don't know, but I'm gonna pick Vera. Um, haven't really I just made that decision right now, like because all the other fights I really, I watched tape on and everything. This fight I watched the tape on too, but it's just really hard for me to pick on this one. It's the main event, and they're usually that way for me. They're usually pretty hard for me to pick. But that's all my bets for this, or all my picks for this card. As far as my bets, go over those real quick with you guys. Um, so my bets are I got a bet on my single bet. I got a single bet on Tucker Lutz. I got him at minus 215. It's a 3 unit play. He's a little bit higher than that now, but you can still get him, for like a minus 220, 230 right now. Same with Manel Kopp. I got him at minus 210 the other day. That's a 3 unit play. Uh, he's a little bit higher than that right now, but you can still get him. He's going to wind up being a really big favorite, and rightfully so. I've got a two-man parlay with Altamirano and Vergara because Vergara is like a minus 300 almost. Um, so if you add those two together, Altamirano, that fight's almost like a pick 'em. So it's a plus 180. That's just a half unit play there. Um, and then I took that two-man parlay and I then added Chitty Njokuani and Trevin Giles, and that made it a plus 666. And I put a half unit on that. Um, so that's going to be the extent of what I give y'all. I'm considering a play on Vera, uh, but I'm not decided yet. If I do, it'll just be like a little half unit on Marlon Vera. But and I will have bigger parlays, but this is like my more confident stuff. Like I don't put my big parlays out; they almost never hit. There's always one person that ruins it, that ruins it for me or whatever. So that's going to be my bets. And what else? So I'm up over 100 subscribers now, almost up to 120. So I appreciate everybody. Um, so I already told you all about the Allen, that I have a bet on Arnold Allen. I got him like plus 130. I put it in last week. I don't know why that card's floating around mixed in with this card on the betting lines, but and also they added LaRon Murphy to the 286 card, so that hasn't happened yet. That's this weekend. And if the line's doable, I'll be adding a bet on him. Uh, yeah, I'm looking. He's definitely probably going to be a big favorite. So I don't know that it'll wind up. It'll definitely be on some parlays for sure. But that's going to be the pick on that fight, just so you guys know. He's taking on a Brazilian guy that let's go look at it real quick. Where is it at? Laurent Murphy is taking on Gabriel Santos, and I looked at this yesterday. Gabriel Santos is good, but he's got a lot of finishes. He's coming from LFA, his first fight in the UFC. He's gonna be fighting at the O2 Arena, far away from home, against a undefeated Laurent Murphy, who is very good. Um, so yeah, I'm picking Laurent Murphy there. I don't know what the line will be. If it's super high, maybe I won't be able to get anything on it. But um, yeah, so that's gonna be the pick on that. And what else did I want to talk about, you guys? Oh yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about and see if you guys comment on it or whatever, and let me know what y'all think. But who really has a chance of beating John Jones in this heavyweight division? In my opinion, I think Curtis Blades actually has a good chance against Jones, just because he's one of the few heavyweights that can really wrestle. Um, and that's just one of my opinions. I think that's a good fight to make. Of course, Tom Aspinall, that'd be a fun fight. He's very athletic, very explosive. Um, that would be a good one. But other than that, man, I mean, I know Sergey Pavlovich is a very tough guy. He hits very hard, but what's his takedown defense look like? What's his I think he was taken down by Alistair Overeem, if I remember correctly. So I think John Jones will be able to exploit that. Um, Stipe is up there in age, so as much as I'm a Stipe fan, uh, through and through, but I think he's past his prime, and I wish that some of these fights, would have been made, you know, uh, a while back. I wish John Jones had made his heavyweight debut a few years ago. Uh, but I mean, yeah, I guess that's all I really want to talk about with you guys. As always, just so y'all know, my show is available on Spotify, Pandora, iTunes, Rumble, and of course here on YouTube. I personally like watching the videos, so I understand why nobody checks it out on anything else. And as always, please check out, Chris Lytle's podcast. Please check out the interview I did with him. It's on my channel. Um, I'm not getting paid to do this. I enjoy his show, and I want other people to enjoy the show. He has a lot of MMA legends from back in the day on there, guys who were in the early UFC. They talk about the beginning of the sport, and how it was back in the day. Very interesting. And I consider Chris a friend. You know what I'm saying? Like, he was nice enough to do an interview with me, and yeah, so check it out, man. And please like and subscribe. Thank all you guys for all the comments and talking to me. I love bullshitting with you guys. For the most part, uh, everybody stays pretty respectful in the comment section, which I appreciate, because everybody's entitled to their opinion. Doesn't matter, and anything can happen in the sport of MMA. So it's cool to see that people aren't shitting all over everybody for their comments or whatever. So I appreciate that. Um, I enjoy the respect, so that's cool. And yeah, but that's it for me, guys. I appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Please like and subscribe, and I'll holler at y'all next week, man. Y'all have a good one.